Without a doubt the easiest CNC machine I have ever built. Let me show you just how simple it is. Hello and welcome to another episode of James Dean Designs, where my regular viewers will clearly see that I am not in the workshop today. I'm actually in my wife's salon, but that is not going to stop us from building this machine right here, the Sainsmart 3030 ProvaMax CNC machine. Now, I don't know much about this particular machine yet, but we are going to get stuck in, get it unboxed and obviously get it assembled. But before we do so, a couple of things I will quickly mention. Blue Loctite. This is a little bit like super glue for your bolts. Just apply one drop to every bolt and it will just guarantee that everything stays together nice and strong. You don't have to use it and you won't see me using it during this video, but it is something definitely to consider. The other thing that I'll point out is I will be following the manual literally page by page, so everything that's in here I will be doing. If I do think that something can be assembled in a slightly better way than is referenced in the manual, I will obviously tell you before doing so in the video. Now, with that out of the way, let's get this unboxed and start getting it built. Once you have unboxed this, take a second to cross-check it against the parts listed in the manual just to ensure that you do have everything. So the first thing we're going to do is drop the X-axis assembly onto the base. Now the base is notched out to take this, and also the side plates on the assembly are also notched out to sit on top of this base frame. You want the Z assembly to be facing towards the front of the machine, which is where the knob is, not the back where the stepper motor is. So essentially as we have it set up in this scenario. Now there is some weight in this, so just pick it up, align it with those slots and it should drop nicely in place. Make sure that it doesn't hit anything, any of the cables, and also make sure it sits all the way down. Once that is in place, take the M5 20mm round capped bolts and put those in place and start to tighten them up. Get them all in position first on both sides before tightening them up, and then we'll go around at the end and just pinch everything up and make sure it is secure. Next we're going to fit the spindle mount to the Z assembly. Now this kit comes with two different sizes, a 65mm mount which will take something like a Makita router, and also a 52mm mount which will take the 300 watt spindle supplied as well as something like a laser. For the purpose of today we're going to be fitting the 52mm mount. And we'll be holding this in place with the M4 18mm bolts supplied in the kit. So just put that in place, and again put the bolts in, make sure they're all aligning and all in place before tightening them up. With that complete, we are now going to drop the spindle in place. Obviously just slide it in. If you are struggling a little bit to get it in, use one of the spanners provided. Just put it in and put a slight bit of leverage in. You do not want to put too much pressure, but just enough to release it in order to get the spindle in. With that in position, we're going to take the same bolts to hold the mount in at the M4 18mm bolts, and we're going to put those in the two side holes in order to tighten up and pinch the clamp around the spindle. Now as this gets tight, just go around and tighten each one by half a turn or quarter of a turn individually, rotating back and forth between the two bolts. Now you don't want to clamp this too much, but equally you don't want to run the risk of the spindle slipping up or down. So just do it a couple of times until it starts to build up enough tension in the bolts, and then you can leave it there. Now one additional thing I like to do is take something like a pen or a Sharpie and just put a small black line across the holder and the spindle itself. Now the reason I do this is once you start machining and using it, you will easily see if the spindle has moved up or down, obviously by that black mark shifting up or hiding then behind the spindle holder. So just a little tip, as I say, to gauge if your spindle moves. Now at this point we're going to do two precautionary checks. The first is bring in a square that you know is accurate, and we're just going to test every side of the spindle to make sure that it is sitting square with the bed itself. Let's do one final check on this side, And that all looks pretty accurate to me. Now, if something is slightly out, you've got a little bit of play in the bolts at the side to be able to adjust this. You can slacken off one side, tighten up the other side, and it should start to counteract it. And if you need to tilt it forward, then again, maybe slacken the top two off, tilt it forward, opposite with the bottom, slacken the bottom ones off, and bring it up the other way. So you do have a little bit of play with that, obviously, to get it all in position. Now, the last check we are going to do is just to make sure the base is square. This looks pretty solid built from Sainsmart, but what we're simply going to do is measure corner to corner, and I have a measurement of 615 millimeters, and then we're going to do the opposite corner, and again 615. So that to me is suggesting that this is very square. Obviously, if there is a discrepancy, again what you want to do is just slacken off the bolts only a little bit and try and adjust it to make it more square. Obviously, every time you make an adjustment, re-measure just to check, and you ultimately want those diagonal measurements to be exactly the same. Next, we are going to fit the air tube using the long black M3 20mm bolts. So just push those through, align the first one with the hole, give it a couple of turns by hand, and then bring in the second bolt to get that in place. Now, obviously, this is a piece of plastic, it's a plastic clamp, so don't over tighten it too much, just make sure that pipe is secure. Next, we're going to fit the offline controller and e-stop to the right hand side of the machine using the M4 10mm bolts. Now again, get the first one in just with a couple of turns, make sure it's held in position, and then again bring the second one in and put that in position. Now this bracket does adjust, so you can adjust the angle of the offline controller, put it in a position that you are comfortable with, and then just tighten up the bolts to keep it in place. So I've just flipped the machine up to try and show you the next part. We're going to connect the wiring to the offline controller. Now there are 3 separate connections. They are all different sizes, which means they will only fit into one of the ports. So simply just go along and put each one in position. I should also point out it will only go into each port one way. So you make sure that the clipper lines up with the clip opening on the bottom. Again, push that in position until it clicks and locks, and then we'll just do the same with the third one on the very far side. There we are, that piece is done. And we're going to do pretty much exactly the same thing on the back of the control board now. The same scenario, 3 different terminals, 3 different ports. So we'll just put each one in individually and make sure it clicks in position, and then we can finish this off. We'll use a couple of zip ties to hold all these cables in place to the frame and make sure everything is nice and secure. You've got a couple down the side here to hold this wiring loom, and then also one underneath of the offline controller to hold that in position. Connect the spindle cables to the terminal block at the side. Simply lift these up all the way until they are at a 90-degree position, sticking up, and then push the wires in order to lock them in position. Now obviously red will go to the red, so we're going to push that in, make sure it goes in all the way, and then clamp it back down in position, and it should be held tight. And the black goes to the black and red on the opposite side, so we're going to push that all the way in, lock it down, and again just make sure it is secure, and that is good to go. We're going to connect the PSU, or the power supply, to the back of the control board using the cable supplied. This should only go in one way. Push that in, and again it should just click into position. Take the other end, connect that to the back of the control box. Again, this will only go in one way. Push it in, make sure it's clicked, and make sure it's secure. Just inside here there is a little red switch that goes between 110 volts and 220 volts. Switch it to the correct one for your country. Take the power cord, connect one end into the back of the box, and obviously connect the other end into your wall socket. Connect the USB cable to the back of the control board, and obviously connect the other end to your laptop or PC. The Z probe, if you want to use it, connects at the top of the offline controller. Simply push it in. You will need to put a little bit of force to make sure it clicks in all of the way, and then that's good to use. So there you have it, the machine is now complete. Obviously there will be some extra parts available in the plastic container, such as spare limit switches, grease for the ball screws that sit underneath these covering plates on the x-axis and the y-axis, and obviously you can see the one on the z-axis there. You have the spanners for adjusting the collet itself, as well as the collet insert. This needs to go in before you insert any bits into that. You also have the clamps in the kit. Now I'm showing the correct way to set them up here, People do often complain about these clamps and say they are not that good, but the reality is when they are set up correct, they will hold anything extremely well. Now at this point you have two options on how you want to run the machine. You can use something like a laptop or PC in order to do this, and this is the route you want to go down. There will be a link somewhere in the top of the video taking you through to another tutorial on how to set all that up and use the software on your laptop or PC. The other option is obviously the offline controller that comes with the machine itself. Now this is fairly intuitive to use. You go through the menus by rotating left and right, and you press the button down to select the options you want. As I say, it is fairly intuitive, and you can just scroll through to certain things such as being able to move the axis about. If I hold this down now, as I say, fairly easy to use. The only thing you have to take into account is you will need to load the jobs onto the micro SD card that comes in the kit itself and insert that into the side of the offline controller in order to load your jobs on there. So yeah, that pretty much completes the setup for this machine. So I said at the start of the video this was simple to assemble, and I wasn't joking. Less than 10 minutes in reality and you can be up and running. Especially with the offline controller, you can get going straight away and start doing some test jobs as soon as you get to use with that menu system. Now obviously the next step for me is to review this machine, but first impression is, well, it's looking really impressive. We've got the ball screws, we've got the linear rails, we've got the thick aluminium plate and body, making this feel like a solid machine. So I'm certainly looking forward to doing some initial tests with this and seeing what it is capable of. Obviously, if you are looking to buy one of these machines, check out the affiliate links in the description area below. They will take you to the latest prices for this machine. They do not cost you any more. I may just get a tiny little bit back, which ultimately helps keep this channel going. Thank you all very much for watching. Final thanks as always goes to my patrons. If you want to get involved for one-to-one help, early access to content and giveaways, then definitely check out those Patreon links in the description area. I will see you all on the next episode.